Have you ever seen a lake so massive it looks like an inland sea? Yet, over just 4 decades, it's lost 2/3 of its size.
The demand for water is outstripping the supply of water to the Great Salt Lake.
Utah's Great Salt Lake has gone from a sprawling, surreal landscape to a cautionary tale for our times. But is it too late to save it? Or will this once thriving oasis vanish entirely if nothing changes? Today we're taking you on a journey through the lake's past and present. From record-breaking water lows to ambitious restoration efforts and surprising reasons for hope. But first, let's explore what makes this lake an incredibly unique place, unlike anywhere else on Earth. Imagine, 40 years ago, the Great Salt Lake stretched across 3,300 square miles. Today, it's barely a third of that. The lake bed is drying up, uncovering vast salt flats and toxic dust plumes that threaten to spread. The drying up of the lake is an environmental nuclear bomb, threatening the existence of Salt Lake City and the homes of 2 million people living on its shores. But why did such an iconic natural wonder start disappearing so rapidly? And can we bring it back? The Great Salt Lake has a deep history, formed from the prehistoric Lake Bonneville, which once covered a huge swath of North America. The Great Salt Lake was left as its salty remnant. For centuries, it was a vital part of the local ecosystem, supporting diverse bird populations and unique species of brine shrimp. But with time, development and human use transformed the landscape around it, setting in motion changes that would eventually threaten the lake's very existence. Despite its decline, the Great Salt Lake remains one of the most unique destinations in the world. Ever walked on oolitic sand? Here you can! Oolitic sand grains are tiny spheres formed from concentric layers of minerals, giving them a distinctive soft feel beneath your feet. Oolitic sand is fairly rare and only found in a few places around the world, including the Great Salt Lake, Baffin Bay, Texas, the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, the Persian Gulf, and the Bahamas. For those drawn to art, the lake is also home to the Spiral Jetty, a monumental land art piece that appears and disappears depending on the water levels, created by the artist Robert Smithson in the 1970s. And if you're looking for something with a touch of whimsy, how about the story of a flamingo named Pink Floyd? This flamingo escaped from a Salt Lake City aviary in the 1980s and became a local legend and symbol of the lake's wild spirit. Pink Floyd was seen around the lake for many years after, and was last seen in Utah in 2005. Then there's the lake's mysterious two-tone color. Split by a railroad causeway, one side of the lake glows a vibrant pink due to high salinity levels and bacteria, while the other shimmers in a more familiar blue-green hue. It's a visual marvel you can only witness here. But behind these marvels lies a crisis. In 2022, the lake reached its lowest recorded level, underscoring the region's ecological fragility. Years of overuse by agriculture and mining, coupled with a 20-year drought, had taken their toll. Rivers that once fed the lake are now tapped upstream to irrigate crops and supply the growing population. Over the past few decades, these diversions have left the lake gasping for water, shrinking it to unprecedented lows. The lake's salt levels spiked so drastically that brine shrimp, vital to the local economy, began to die off, migratory birds losing a key food source as flies disappeared, stopped returning to the lake. If the lake vanishes entirely, it could lead to a Mad Max-like scenario, where the water is scarce and people are forced to abandon the area. The lake bed, rich in arsenic and other toxic metals, would become more exposed to wind, causing toxic dust storms that would contaminate the air. The Great Salt Lake isn't just an ecological gem, it's also an economic powerhouse. This lake contributes around $1.3 billion annually to Utah's economy. The largest share comes from mineral extraction, which generates approximately $1.1 billion each year. Recreation activities, from boating and birdwatching to visiting the iconic Spiral Jetty, add another $136 million. And let's not forget the brine shrimp industry, bringing in around $57 million annually, as brine shrimp cysts are harvested and sold as fish food worldwide. Losing the lake would mean an irreplaceable blow to Utah's economy, making restoration efforts not just an ecological priority, but an economic one too. Recognizing the urgency, Utah appointed its first ever commissioner for the Great Salt Lake, tasked with finding ways to save it, but it's a tough balancing act. How much water can be redirected to the lake without affecting agriculture and communities? Some areas are now experimenting with upstream water metering, which has successfully reduced water consumption by up to 30%. Over $250 million has been invested in installing these meters across the basin, and an additional $270 million has gone into educating residents on conservation practices. Over $1 billion has been invested in recent years. Initiatives include offering financial incentives for farmers to cut water use, employing technologies to optimize irrigation, experimenting with cloud seeding to boost rainfall, and even plans to split the lake in two to control salinity. The Mormon Church has also stepped up, significantly reducing its own water consumption to set an example. Incentives have also led to collaboration with mineral companies that rely on the lake. Recently, one of these companies agreed to let more water flow back into the lake. A small, yet significant victory. The drying lake has led to a host of ecological issues. The lake is a critical habitat for migratory birds like pelicans, which used to nest on Gunnison Island, safely surrounded by water. But now, shrinking waters have transformed the island into a peninsula, giving land predators easy access to bird nests. Coyotes and other animals are disrupting the pelican nesting grounds, and with fewer pelicans, the lake's delicate ecosystem is suffering further imbalances. Thankfully, recent conservation efforts show promise. New legislation aims to safeguard the lake by prioritizing water flow into it. Across Utah, these efforts are starting to yield results, with water consumption down by 20 to 30% in key areas. In 2022, substantial funding was allocated for water conservation education and infrastructure improvements. These small but hopeful steps demonstrate that if we keep pushing, there is a path forward. The Great Salt Lake's story isn't over, and together we can help write its next chapter. From controlling water usage to legislative change, every effort matters in keeping this awe-inspiring landscape alive. Protecting the lake not only preserves its unique attractions and wildlife, but also secures a sustainable future for the region. Let's continue working together to make sure this iconic lake can thrive for generations to come. Restoration is possible, but it requires a shared commitment from policymakers to farmers, businesses, and every one of us. If we can continue to reduce water consumption, redirect flows, and protect this natural wonder, there is hope that future generations will know the Great Salt Lake not as a memory, but as a marvel. The fight isn't over. It's just beginning. If you like this video, please consider supporting the channel by subscribing, liking the video, and hitting the notification bell to stay updated on my new videos. See you in the next one.